So today we've talked about things that writers should do today, or things that we think that writers might want to think twice about before they do. And I just want to start by saying one of the things I think when Bertold and I were talking about the rules of writing, I made sure to say these are just our opinions. It's not every writer should do what they're comfortable with, and we're not saying that just categorically you should never do any of these things. But we're just going to address a few things and give our thoughts on why we think these are maybe, like I said, things to think about two or three times before you decide to do them. So the first one is basically pay somebody to publish your book, which is the modern day version of vanity publishing, the vanity press. Years ago, before there was online publishing, there were vanity publishers that you could pay $2,000 or $3,000 to, and they would publish your book and send you boxes of your book. And the story generally is those boxes make for a good wall in your basement or something like that. But generally, uh, trying to sell books through a vanity press was difficult, if not impossible. So now in the era of technology and ebooks and online stuff, there are today's version of that, which there are all sorts of companies out there that will offer to publish your book if you just pay them 19.95, and that's the decimal is after the five, not after the 19, or $1,500, or they have multiple packages, different prices, and I've known a few people who have done this. I've strongly encouraged them not to do it. They pay the fee, and basically the publisher does nothing. They don't edit your book, they don't clean it up, they don't market it for you. It's just done, and nothing has been done. And meanwhile, you've spent a couple $1,000s to do something that I think all of us have done through Kindle direct publishing. Audrey has used Smashwords, and it doesn't cost a penny. So one of the things I tell people, or I do myself, when I have a writer friend who tells me, "Oh, I got this, this publisher interested," and they tell me the name of the publisher, and then they say, "Yeah, it's just going to cost me $2,000," and I just shake my head, and then I go Google the name of the publisher, and yeah, please don't do that, because you're not getting anything for that money. So that's my first uh, comment on things that writers should think twice about before doing. Susan Berthold?
I have actually paid somebody, but what I paid was for formatting that I did not know how to do.
Right.
And I think that's a little bit different, because there's some technical aspects, or there were. I don't know if it's the same way. I mean, it's been 5 years. Technology with Amazon changes, or with Kindle changes almost daily with what they can and cannot do with you for you. Um, but I didn't really know a lot about making sure the book was formatted properly. So I had a lady that I have met online through my blog, and you all may know her, but it's sort of a side job for her. She publishes her own books and she publishes for friends. And I mean, it was like $30 to publish my book. And basically, what she does is a final edit, primarily for typos. She does a quick run through edit of the book. She'll read it and do a quick run through edit of the book. And then which I already had it professionally edited, but then she comes and does her, last minute check, and she can put up, any, like I didn't know how to submit for the icons, for like your own book publishing icon, to
Yeah.
get the pages set up and the different pages for part one or part two, if it has any parts, and uh, chapter titles and, things like that. I just leave it up to her.
All
And
right.
I don't think that's the same thing as far as vanity press.
No. Yeah.
A, a
Go ahead.
vanity a vanity press where you're paying somebody thousands of dollars to put your book up on Amazon, I wouldn't do it. I've published on Smashwords and I've published on Kindle, so I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't pay a vanity press to do it.
See, that's what you were talking about, Susan, hiring that person to help you do that. That's consistent with our things that writers should do. You
No,
know,
okay.
the last edit, and if you do need help formatting it. But yeah, what we're talking about is the modern day version of the vanity press. And like I said, I two different guys that I worked with had book projects in the last few years, and they both went with these online versions of the vanity press. And it, like I said, they don't you don't get anything for the money that you spend.
I feel like it's a scam job
It
because
is.
you for example, my Scrivener will it has a conversion to EPUB or whatever version you want the book in. You
Hmm.
press a button and you got it, and then you can upload that
Yeah.
pretty much if it's formatted properly already. So, but it gets
Okay,
it
but
in.
don't some of these outfits give you entry into bookstores? I mean, some of them don't. They really are a scam. But some of the hybrid publishers where you pay them something and they guarantee that you'll get distributed to bookstores.
They do provide you with some access to distribution like that if you pay for it. That they most of the ones that I've seen have 3 or 4 or 5 different publishing packages, and the higher up you go in the cost, the more you might get, and one of those things might be distribution. But again, what are they actually, besides distribution, what are they doing to actually market it?
Yeah, not much, I don't think. And the other thing is they cost quite a bit. I remember going to a presentation by one of these guys who I think wasn't a scam, but it was a sort of you pay and you get services. And I kind of quickly priced out what he was offering, and to publish a book would have cost at least $5,000 and maybe more.
Yeah,
And that just doesn't appeal to me. So
especially when they're not really even doing anything for you.
you'd have to sell an awful lot to recover your upfront costs, never mind make any kind of profit. Mind you, we're not really into profits, are we?
Yeah. Anything else on this one?
And another thing I would add is never publish a book on borrowed money. Just don't. Save up for a few years if you have to, but don't go into debt. Otherwise, it just kind of puts the whole thing into a realm that you don't want it to be.
Yeah, no, yeah, I, there are some things that unless you can do all of it yourself, a cover might be something, some editing might be something. There are some things that you will want to probably spend a little bit of money on to put the best product out there. But if you're borrowing money to publish a book, then you're going to have to probably find some other way to pay that debt off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're lucky, unless you're one of the fortunate few. So,
Or you've got some sort of really hot seller, some kind of, I don't know, you're notorious somehow, but in that case, you'd be able to probably pitch
get a
your thing
publisher.
to a regular publisher, and they'll
Yeah.
take the cost. After all, they should be more efficient at managing the costs of publishing than somebody who's just written something.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you either get someone else to do it by paying them or by convincing someone else to take you on in your project, or you have to just learn how to do things yourself. It's that good, fast, cheap again.
Yep.
Pick two.
Yep. So I think something kind of related to this on our list. I think Bertold, you came up with "Don't pay for advertising."
Yes,
You want to talk about that?
I pushed for that one. Others may feel differently about that. I don't know, but like my opinion of advertising is that it's pretty much a waste. Um, I paid for advertising once on both Twitter and Facebook. Um, the Twitter ads went nowhere, and the Facebook ads, all that I got was a lot of messages from confused people who were like, "Why am I seeing this in my timeline? I don't understand." Because they can message me directly, and they're like, "What is this?"
Why are you on my page? Get off of my page!
So it's a small sample,
Get
but
off the grass.
I've barely ever myself ever bought a book because of I saw it in an ad. Usually if I'm gonna buy a book, it's because I saw it recommended by somebody that I trust, or that I just for whatever reason found it interesting. Maybe once in a while I might have done it, but I can't recall ever buying a book because of an ad. So my opinion on advertising is that it's throwing your money away.
And I have to say, I am 100% opposed to that opinion.
No, that's good. That's good.
The
I like.
only books I have ever sold are through eReader News Today, or other than friends and family. But I mean, it's not like I pay a fortune for advertising. You pay them, I don't know what it is now, but at the time I was paying, it was like uh, $15 or $30, and it might have gone up to like $50. But uh, there was another librarian lady, something, I don't know what else, but I used to sell a few through her. And I know quite a few authors who have paid for BookBub, and they're paying, they're paying like in the hundreds to thousands, depending upon their genre, and they are making some money off their books. So I think if you have a really good product and you have confidence in it, uh, put that thing out there. If BookBub would never take me, and I don't know if it was the genre or the fact that my book doesn't really fit the crime thriller genre, because it's more like Carl Hyacin and Elmore Leonard and Tim Dorsey.
Which
The
is a genre that sells a ton of books. So
it
by
is,
that,
but
yeah,
it's a comedic crime,
yeah.
and BookBub didn't have a category for it. It was all dark, gritty, noir, whatever. It was not a good deal for me with BookBub, but eReader News Today, I think through them alone, I sold over 4,000 copies. So that was pretty good.
Yeah, I've had the same experience. With One Night in Bridgeport, I used eReader News Today, I think 2 or 3 times, and that's how I managed to sell several thousand downloads of it. I think the key, at least back then when I did it, excuse me, sorry, you didn't pay up front, you paid a percentage because they are basically connected to Amazon. So you basically pay a percentage of how much sales you generate within, I think it was 3 days or 5 days of the ad showing up on their website.
I think it's different now.
Yeah, it might be.
You pay a set.
Yeah, and that's
Even
and I've looked at BookBub, and there's there's so many of these, but I've looked at them, and when they tell me, well, you have to pay $250, and we have 60,000 people who like that particular genre, it's like I liked the percentage based on what actually happened. And I think the other thing you mentioned is the genre matters too, because I think um, if you write in a popular genre that people read a ton of, like romance or legal thrillers or murder mysteries, those you might get a lot of sales from on those websites or their Facebook pages. But if you don't write that kind of genre fiction, I don't know if it's worth it.
I don't think it'd be worth it for me. But I have to say, I've never tried any of them. I've read articles about advertising on Amazon advertising, and it's so complicated where you have all these click-throughs and impressions and this and that, and I think that this isn't for me.
Yeah.
So I really don't have much to say about this. It's just I haven't tried it. Maybe I should try something. I know I've heard other people speak about eReader News Today, and I just somehow haven't gotten to that point yet. And I don't think I'd get anywhere with BookBub. My things don't have enough genre
Reviews.
identification to
Oh,
them. They're kind of mixed bags. So, they're sort of quasi-literary, quasi-supernatural, quasi this and that. And I don't think that would get to first base with BookBub, never mind the high cost. So,
yeah.
I'm just a dud when it comes to that stuff.
I talked with I don't know if it was on Twitter or somewhere, but I was talking to Carrie Rubin, and she said that Twitter, I think she said Twitter ads did nothing for her, but she actually has run Facebook ads and those have been successful. So I don't know, what the difference is. But I'm like you, Bertold. I don't buy a book because I see an ad on my Facebook page or on Twitter.
Well, I know that Sarah Craddock, she started with e-reader News Today with her little, I guess it's St. Charles at Dark or whatever it was. She has like 20 books now, and she is on BookBub, but she has exploded on BookBub, and she's gone to USA Today with 3 different books she's written. So, I say it can help, and it certainly can't hurt if you're not like, got a gambling addiction and just keep doing it and keep rolling the dice and keep rolling the dice. But I think it was worth a shot.
Well, but that's one of the things you said about her, I think, is key. She has volume, and it's probably I'm guessing she probably writes in the same genre. Each book is the same, so she's developing an audience that likes that genre, likes her
Oh,
style.
yeah.
So it just keeps piling on and adding on that way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, a couple things we had on our list relate to reviews. One of them is don't expect every reviewer to like your book. I see people complain about negative reviews or whatever, and I've just always thought, what I always say whenever I see that is, when you get a negative review, you are now officially a writer.
Mhm.
And you should accept it and not expect every single person to like what you put out there. It's all a matter of taste, and there are going to be people, no matter how many people say, "Oh, I loved your book, it was great," and they write a positive review, there will be people who think it's complete and total crap. And they will write that on a review on Amazon or Goodreads or on Twitter or on their blog, and that's just a reality, and it actually means you're a writer.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about that. I haven't had too many really negative reviews, but there they are, the few of them that there are. But the real problem is not enough reviews, right? People buy your book or otherwise acquire it if you have it up for free. They download it, but you never see a review. So that's the sad part for me.
Yeah.
I would add that sometimes a negative review, if it's well written, it can be a good thing. I mean, my first book of short stories, a friend of mine reviewed it, and he reviewed it honestly, and he said, "Look, these are what I think the flaws are. This is what's wrong with it." And I mean, like, my first reaction on reading it is like, "Oh man, that kind of that stings," you know. But as I thought about it, I was like, you know what, he's exactly right, and it prompted me to, reevaluate things and try new things and think about how I was writing. So I mean, a good negative review in terms of one that's helpful can be your friend.
Yeah,
Now, obviously, if somebody, you know, I see all the time on Amazon reviews of all kinds of books that are just like, "It was bad. I hated it. 1 star," and it's like, well, that's useless. That's just
Right.
worthless.
Well, my favorite negative reviews on Amazon are, I ordered the book and it didn't come for 3 weeks, and they give the book 1 star because there was a delivery problem.
Mhm.
Yes. But you have to live with that too. It is what it is.
The only time I think that it's legitimate to, well, not necessarily whine, but to even talk about, because really, if you're a writer, you've got to have alligator skin. You can't let stuff like that bother you one way or the other, because it's like you say, Mark. It's just that's being a writer. Not everybody likes the same thing. Not everybody likes the same style of clothes or the same foods. They're not all gonna like your book, and you
Right.
might think yours is the greatest crime novel out there, but there may be many people that don't like that particular style of crime
Well, yeah,
novel.
this reminds me of something. This is a review I wrote. I bought a book uh, written by a fellow whose blog I follow, not one of you people at all, and it was well written and did its job, I'm sure. but it happened to be the whole point of the thing was extreme, crude, gross violence. And
Yeah,
I didn't
exactly.
realize it was going to be like that because the things that this person posts to his blog aren't like that. Although I should have gotten a hint because I used to follow him on Goodreads, and the books he read were of that type. But I saw this book. It had a fairly interesting sounding description. I bought it, I read it, and I found it really tough going because I personally don't like that sort of thing. And so when I wrote the review, I said the book was well written. It achieved what I'm sure was the desired effect of the author, but I think it should have had a better description for, making it clear that maybe not exactly a trigger warning, because I don't know, sometimes I wonder about trigger warnings, but it should have made it clear that there was extreme gross violence. And in that case, I personally wouldn't have bought the book. But there you go.
You remind me of something funny that happened to me. And it's probably the only review that I've ever had that I thought was hilarious. And I even like the comments to the reviewer. You know how a reviewer will have a comment, and then underneath that, people can comment on the reviewer's comment. I mean, the reviewer's comment. I had a lady once, and personally, she had a vendetta against me because something I wrote on her blog when she went on a racist rant, and I called her on it. Well, she went to my she went to my book site on Amazon, and she complained, and I'm not going to use her words, but she complained about the the first word that came out of the protagonist's mouth had the F word in it. And that bothered her enormously. And a lady from New York came and wrote underneath there, wait a minute, this is a crime novel. It says it's a crime novel in the description. Not only does it say it's a crime novel, you also know that they're talking about a sex trafficking ring. And you're going to tell me that one petty curse word is upsetting you? If you're only upset by one curse word, in why would you even be in this genre looking at this book? Because the lady admitted she didn't buy it, but that she read the
The
look
peek inside.
inside, yeah, and got to that one word and decided not to buy it, which
I
I
don't
thought
think
was
you should be
hilarious.
writing a review in that case. I think you should
Yeah,
read
You
the
know,
book or at least give it a good shot before you
right.
review.
That's what the corollary to this is when you get a negative review, you should not react negatively to it, or at least not
oh no,
publicly. I'm sorry?
I laughed.
No, I
It was
know,
funny.
but that's the frustrating thing to me. And I think I sometimes dance on the precipice on this. And I think I've even written on my blog once or twice about a negative review. And the reason why I do it is when they clearly didn't read the book.
Mhm.
And if they clearly didn't read the book, they have no right to write a negative review. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't like those reviews either where people say, I didn't read the book, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm giving it 1 star anyway. So, um, anything else on how we handle reviewers?
Um, well, I'll just say that when you're reviewing a book of somebody you know, and we talked last time or a previous time about how a lot of, for us indies, a lot of the people who read and review our books are people who we know through the blogosphere, maybe, or through social media or something. And it's a lot harder to write a negative or a critical review when you know the person. So that just is one of those things. Some people just don't go there. If they can't give a 4 or 5 star positive review, they just don't bother. And
Well,
maybe that's why so many reviews never get written.
I have never read a book that I couldn't find something nice to say about it. I might give some constructive criticism on some things that might could have been different, but I'm also going to point out the strengths of that book because I don't think I mean I read a book one time that had so many and it was published by a publisher and it had so many typos in it. I was just absolutely appalled that a publisher would put that out there. And it's not just indies that do that sort of thing. So yeah, but I I did say it was a great story if I could have finished reading it, but the typos in it were absolutely destructive. They were totally destructive to my whole mental process of reading this book. So, yeah.
Okay. I think Susan, you added this to the list. Be careful with political stuff. And depending on what you say, I might disagree with you.
I don't know. I don't really mean that in the book, but I think marketing yourself. I have a personal uh, I have a personal page on Facebook, and I will say anything I want to on that page
And you
about
certainly do. You
and I
certainly
certainly
do.
do. I have opinions. They're strong opinions. I put them out there, and I really don't care if you like them or not because that is my page and it is locked down for privacy. The only people that are on that page are people that I know really well. I have either met them personally or I have known them online for years. I don't keep, now, I take that back. Since I moved to Matlacha, I just recently friended a whole bunch of people that I know are along the same political affiliation that I am, because there's too many people here on the islands that are not. And so, I just keep that shell around that one spot where I can just throw it all out there. But as far as like my website and which I do have an author website, I'm working on artist website, but uh, my fan pages for my book, my fan pages, that I have, Instagram, anywhere that's public, then you're not going to see that. You're just not going to see the public. But Carl Hyacin can do it. He does. He very much does. But that's Carl Hyacin.
Well, I think all of you read my blog, so all of you know I don't shy away from political topics on my blog.
I don't do much on the blog with
Yeah.
political topics.
On Twitter,
Mark, do you perceive that that's a problem for you to show your political leanings on your blog? Does that affect your books one way or another?
I don't know, but my theory on it is if I'm out on the social media world, I'm out the way I am. This is who I am, and if I lose some readers because I happen to be liberal politically and bash Trump constantly, then I lose some readers for that. I just, but I've never once have I got any kind of reaction or negativity from readers or potential readers because of my political views. And so, but I'm sure it happens. I'm sure that there are people on the left who, I mean, it happens. You see it all the time. J.K. Rowling is now persona non grata in the progressive world because of some things that she wrote about transgenderism, and you see it on the other side too. The right, people on the right won't read anybody who happens to be a liberal. So it's there. I just don't. I don't know. Like I said, I am who I am,
I
and
saw
that's
in I saw in Carl Hyacins, I'm a friend of his and I see his public feed as well. But the comments in there, people were like, I love your books, but I will never read another one again because
exactly.
and they do, and I don't know if that's true that they wouldn't read another book again, but he's a lot like me, and that whole transgender thing, I think that turned off a few people in Orlando of my book.
Yeah.
And I mean, they told me they didn't write a review about it, but they said, well, when it got into the, I just, I didn't want to follow a character that leads that lifestyle, is what they told me about Brandy. So, whatever.
Don't accept everything an editor says. Go with your gut and your own voice. Anybody want to take
I
that
think
on?
that's good advice. Yes.
Yeah, I think there have definitely been times, not that I've ever had like a professional editor, but where a beta reader will say like, I think you should do this one thing. And I'm like, no, that just that doesn't fit the story I want to tell. I mean, they might be correct that like that would make it better in most people's opinion, but if I'm strongly thinking nope, that's not the story I want to tell, then I'll just be like, nope, I'm sticking with my instinct. Now, I mean, you have to be careful because you don't want to respond that way to every single suggestion.
Right. Right.
It's tough, but I think you can usually tell when somebody suggests something and you're like, duh, why wasn't I doing that already? That makes it better versus when you're like, nope, this is the story I want.
Or if
Susan.
more than one person says the same thing,
Right.
then it's probably worth paying attention to. But
Right.
yeah.
I mean, Kevin Brennan has provided me with editing for the last few things that I've put out there, and I probably take 70 to 80% of his suggestions, and the others it's like, well, yeah, I see it, but I don't. It's not important to me, or it's just like Bertolt said, it's not exactly what I thought or how I viewed this, and I make the changes that I think I need to make and ignore the rest. Susan, I know you had struggles with someone who was helping you with naked alliances. Real
Yeah,
struggles.
yeah, I had real struggles with him. It, he had his distinctive particulars about my genre, and I didn't because it was the first time I had written in that genre. And um, he was honestly he went overboard on it in my opinion. No words that end in ly. There literally could not be an adjective that ended in ly. And if you've read the book, to me, the story is choppy. I think the story is choppy because there's description in there, but there's no elegant description. But he said in a crime novel, you don't need elegant description. You just need to cut and dry. And it made it read like Elmore Leonard's works, if you've ever read his works, whether it's his westerns or his crime novels. It cut the sentences short and to the point. And that may be my editor's desired effect, but I did feel like he kind of stole my voice, and he was real particular about, point of view and what person you were in, and you couldn't do head jumping. And there was one chapter in particular that I had Brandy and Richard were in the same warehouse, and one was going in one direction and one was going in another direction. So obviously you couldn't be in one of them's head with stuff going on and in the other one's head with stuff going on. So I actually had to break it down to sections, so it couldn't be a chapter of what was happening in the room. And I get it now, but at the time I didn't get it. And uh I had Brandy, and then there was a little section that was back into Richard's head, but there had to be a space between them, which now I get it. Like I say, I get it. Uh, and then there had to be a space, but I struggled with all that. I mean, that just made writing that chapter. That was my favorite chapter in the whole book, myself personally, until I had to go through that with him. So yeah, it can be tough. I think that it's a better book for having been professionally edited than it was before he did that. And and my husband, he loves the book. I mean, he says, "God, I love it. It's so funny and it's so gritty and it's so real and it's Florida, and it's your book is perfect. Don't worry about your book." But yeah, it bothered me.
Well, if you feel that your voice is being shanghaied or messed with, then I could see where that would be a problem. Whereas I can kind of see where you had a learning process with the point of view thing. And, that's probably he was right there. I think because
He was
head
right.
hopping isn't a good thing. But the voice, you want to keep your own voice. That's the whole point of writing.
Yep.
Like I said, I mean, with all of these things that we're talking about, sit back and think about it, double check it, do what you're comfortable with. And to me, an editor is helpful, but it's not their book, it's not their story, it's yours. And if they're making things that change the story too much, then again, go with your gut. Keep your voice in your story. Who came up with don't underprice to get more sales?
I might have said something about that one too. I was just, I've read a lot of blogs where people talked about, oh, I can't sell a book unless it's 99 cents. And if everybody's selling their book for 99 cents or giving it away for free, then you lower the ceiling so low that people just stop paying for books. We went through that back maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. It was like that. It's not that bad anymore like it was there for a while, but yeah, you couldn't give books away. Everybody was writing a book. And I
Yeah,
think for
they
2020,
still are.
I think for the pandemic, all these people stuck at home that never had time to write a book, they're all writing books. It's going to probably get worse.
Yeah,
Thing is, they'll all be about how they survived the pandemic.
yeah.
Some of them.
The
So
other
you'll
thing,
have all these pandemic books.
were you finished, Audrey? I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah, I'm done.
The other thing I'll add to that is that underpricing to sell more books won't work anyway, because I know there are plenty of books that are free that are very good and nobody reads them. So it doesn't matter if you make it free. So yeah, don't try that strategy.
Isn't that the thing with BookBub though? Is that in order to get in, you have to have your book discounted? Now, it doesn't have to be free, but it has to be discounted.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of them are like that. I think e-reader news today is like that too. You either have it's either discounted or it's free, and I think a lot of them are like that. And one of you said it's this is all driving down the price of books, and nobody expects to pay anything for especially self-published books now. If they're gonna download an ebook from an independent author, it's supposed to be free or 99 cents, and that's what our industry is doing to each other. But again, the promotional sites drive that pricing as well. It's very frustrating. And when Bridgeport came out, I think I priced it at $4.99 for an ebook, and then when I got enough reviews, to go on e-reader news today, I offered it free for 3 days. I offered it 99 cents for 3 days. And I think it's priced at 99 cents now, just kind of more or less permanently. But anytime I put something out new, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to at least ask $3 or $4 or $5 for an ebook and not go down, because it's just ridiculous that we can't sell a book for less or for more than 99 cents or free.
I guess the thing to do is if you're planning to discount it, to have the initial price be high enough that discounted, it's still a reasonable price.
Exactly.
Start it off at, say, I don't know, $5.99 and discount it to $2.99 and then be happy with that, maybe.
Yeah. Don't force yourself to write when you're not feeling it.
Well, I can sort of agree with that, but not really. I mean, my first book, when I wrote that, I just had to write it. But I decided that's an abnormal state. It was, sheer excitement. It was kind of like being in love, right? You can't think of anything but the book and writing it, and it's always spinning there in your head. And that's abnormal. I think once you're done, you're through that stage, you're going to have to develop some way of making yourself write even when you don't really feel like it. Either by saying, okay, let's do a deal, write for half an hour every day. And then what you're hoping will happen is that you'll get into it and you'll get rolling, and after the half hour is over, you'll keep going, at least some days. But you have to sort of make yourself sit down and write regularly enough that you actually get something done.
I would say, like, on the first pass, usually, like when you're first writing the first draft, it's kind of like what Audrey's describing, is you're in this state of you're just writing and it feels great to write. This is so exciting. The part where you might have to force yourself is usually on the rewrite or the editing or whatever you want to call that phase of it, because that um, there's never been anything I've written for publication that I haven't been completely sick to death of looking at by the time I was through with it. I've had to force myself, okay, I'm going to go back and rework this one more time. So you might have to force yourself at that point. But I
Uh,
think to
I
start,
like I like editing. What I find the hardest is that initial creation. That's really tough. I don't know why, but it is.
I read a lot of Tim Dorsey and the local Florida readers, and when I read their work, and a lot of these people I have gotten to know here in the state through Florida Writers Association and Central Florida Writers and thereabouts, and Sleuth Fest, which is always held in Boca Raton. So, and the I can't call the name of the other one. Uh, but anyway, they all it's kind of like a social sort of a thing with these writers, but I can read their books. And for example, I'm gonna use an example. I'm gonna say his name because he wouldn't care. But Tim Dorsey's writing, all of his writing is so fantastic. It is knee slapping hilarious, line after line after line after line after line. And you can tell it's just so smooth. And he's got these two certain characters that have certain personalities, and it's hysterical. And they're it's easy to follow, and you just kind of know, what's going to happen, or not exactly what's going to happen, but you got an idea where he's going with the story. And when he wrote Coconut Cowboy, Tiger Shrimp Tango was hilarious. Triggerfish was hilarious. When he wrote Coconut Cowboy, you could read that, and it was almost as if it was written by a ghostwriter because it did not have the same punch to it. It wasn't funny at all. It wasn't even interesting. And it's like he just really forced the writing on that one. And then he told me later on uh, that that was a book written for his publisher because he was required to write so many books a year. And he got to that point and he was just done with it. He just spit words out on the page because uh, he was just tired of doing it and he needed a break. But he had a deadline to meet and he had an obligation, and that's what he came up with. And I think that's sad. And when a writer feels that way, that they've got to push themselves just because they promised themselves that they would, I don't think the quality of their writing is as effective when they're pushing like that.
I think my biggest problem is, as I've said before, I'm the ultimate pantser when it comes to writing, and I kind of discover the story as I go along. And there's always a point at which I finally figure out everything that's going to come in the future, and that's when it gets boring to me to write because now I know what's going to happen. And I'm always, as soon as I start feeling that way, I start feeling like, well, the reader's going to figure that out too. So why would I keep writing something that's boring to me and that's going to be boring to the reader? And that's where I get to the point where it's difficult for me to sit down and write. And I
Change it up.
change it up, yeah, but it just, one of the when I've talked ad nauseum about my writer's block, but I think one of the things that I do, and I think Audrey said it, you just need to write regularly. Just write and see what happens, and that's the thing that I'm still struggling with
You can
because
always wad it up and throw it away.
yeah, exactly,
Always do that.
exactly. So I'm not sure what the answer is on this one. I mean, and there's no answer on any of these things, but um, I agree that if you're forcing it, good readers are going to figure that out. So anyway,
Especially if you've established a style in a
yeah,
whether it's a particular genre, or if people have become accustomed to your style and then you go and change it up, it's obvious. And I had people that read Red Clay and Roses And because the style of Naked Alliances was so vastly different, they loved Red Clay and Roses, which was horribly edited, and then they hated Naked Alliances, which was professionally edited. And then likewise, people hated Red Clay and Roses, which had a totally different style than Naked Alliances, and then loved like Naked Alliances. So, just people have a certain way that their brain reads and like enjoys reading, and if you don't write that way, um,
Well, that comes back to not everybody's going to like your book. And
yeah,
not, I guess, if you change your style or change your genre, then not everybody is going to like all your books. Like some people might like some and not others.
true that.
And changing genres or changing styles is a good way to not be able to build an audience.
Yet another way not to be able
Yes.
to build an audience.
And what you said, that it tickles me because when I first moved here to the islands, and you read Naked Alliances, didn't you? Can you read it? Are you reading it, Berto? You said you might read it. When I first wrote Naked Alliances, I thought Florida people would really love that book. And a lot of people in Orlando love that book. And a lot of people in Florida love that book. There's some good reviews, there's some not so good reviews. That's okay. But when I came to the islands out here, I thought, man, people are going to love this book because it's a Florida based book and they're all about the islands and they're all about Florida. Do you know that I think there's 5 people so far that I've met, and I haven't met a lot of people here because of the pandemic. They wanted to read Red Clay and Roses, and they are fawning over Red Clay and Roses, which is about Georgia, a series of events and a group of people grappling with inequality in the state of Georgia in the 1950s and 60s. It's, and they're Northerners, they're snowbirds here that were, friends of my husband's or their wives, his friends' wives, and they're reading that book and they're just loving it, and they've already read it, and they wrote me reviews already, and I'm like, holy smokes, totally didn't happen as I thought it would.
You never know.
And
Never know.
now I want to write now I want to write again, but I want to write Naked Alliance stories, but everybody's fawning over Red Clay and Roses. So what do I do? Do I write
Write more
about
Naked Alliance stories.
I think you're right. I think the audience is better there. I sold a lot more of those books than I did Red Clay and Roses.
Well, it should. I know earlier you said it's not really. It doesn't fit into a particular genre, but it is a particular type of genre that is popular with a certain population of readers.
Yeah.
And I think if you're writing to try to get an audience and get more readers, I think that would be. And I think you enjoyed writing that story too. You enjoyed
Yeah,
those.
we had a blast with it. My husband and me, we were laughing and everything all the way through that book to get that book written. But Tim Baker in Flagler Beach, he's been writing in that genre for uh, probably about 10 years now. And he's got about 10 or 12 books in that genre. And they're making a movie of one
Yeah.
in Flagler Beach right now. An
Yeah.
Ike story. Ike is the protagonist in his stories, and they're actually making a movie. I think it's Unfinished Business is the book that they're making, and it's a local made movie, and he's a DJ, so he's got all these connections, and he's got people. They've come together. They're having meetings twice a week to get this thing filmed right there in Flagler Beach. And I think it's cool. It's probably gonna debut on Twitch. Who knows? But it'll debut somewhere. Maybe it'll get put on YouTube. Maybe it'll make it big at some film festival. But who knows?
Okay. Any other topics anybody wanted to cover?
Not really.
The only other thing I'd say is that the other thing not to do as an indie author is not to give up. It can be
Oh yeah.
difficult, but don't give up.
Yeah, I haven't mentioned this, and this might, but your response to my post about pep talks, that's what it was. pep talks, and then you did posted pep talks too. I really think that that's important. Don't give up. Don't get discouraged. If nothing else, you are writing stories and you're reaching some people, and through that you can have a conversation with your readers and continue to grow as a writer. And I think that that's very important.
And
Not to give
also
up.
encouraging each other is
Yep.
just huge too, because I don't think I would have. I had put Naked Alliances on the shelf and decided I wouldn't even publish it until Mark Paxson said, "Get that book off that shelf and let's do something with it right now."